and then we'll start class off on the right foot. So
thank you,
Neal. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Thank you so much. Good morning, Julia. Good morning, Leslie. Good morning, Tony. We're going to have a good time here. And so here's what we are going to do. So we are going to walk through this thing called Until, the Art of Perseverance. And so here's the beautiful part about this class. One, as Tony mentioned, it is not a CE course, which means that we are not confined by those CE requirements from FREC, DBPR, or the national or state local associations. But here's what it also means. It means that we are not going to look at some theoretical information. We're going to walk through in a short amount of time some true, real, applicable items that's going to help impact us, especially during this time that we find ourselves in. And when I say this time, hopefully you know what I mean. And so by that, we know that there are all types of things brewing in this industry and in life, because the beauty and the challenge is that although we are real estate agents, realtors, professionals, service people, we're also sons, daughters, husbands, wives, leaders, right? Parents. We're also these people who are trying to figure out how to get through life while everything around us is still happening. And that's going to require something special, something different, something unique that's going to separate us from what I call the mediocre many. Because if we look around us, probably today, definitely over the past week, we will see some people who have chosen not to persevere. We have read some stories, watched some unfortunate news events where someone said, you know, I think it's easier if I just give up. I think the outcome isn't going to be favorable, so why even try? So that's why we're here today to talk about Until, the Art of Perseverance. And so our job, my job here, is to help you turn an art into a science. There are individuals that we probably marvel at when we look at them and say, man, they make life look easy. They must never have struggles. And while we know that's not true, we do believe that our struggles, that our challenges, that our obstacles and hurdles are bigger and seem insurmountable compared to those of our colleagues, our peers, those celebrities that we see. But what we're going to be equipped with after we close our time here today is we will be equipped to do this thing. We will be equipped to move forward. And as we are, we're going to be better prepared. So let me go in, and we're going to jump into straight off with some PowerPoint. So as we are doing this, first, of course, you all know, if you know me, that I must always start out with giving respect and honor where respect and honor are due. I do have my U.S. Navy Tervis tumbler, so if you are a military veteran, active service personnel, reservist, or first responder, we thank you. We thank you for your bravery, for your courage, for your sacrifice. It's because of people like you that we get to do this thing. For those of you who are family members of reservists, active service, first responders, or veterans, we thank you for sharing your loved one with us. It is because of your willingness to share them and their sacrifice, their commitment, that we get to do this thing that we do on a daily basis, and we do not take that for granted. So we are here for Until. And what is Until? Until, the word is defined as up to the point of. So up to the point of what? So for us, we have to keep going until ... Until we're successful, until the transaction closes, until we're in the physical shape, or until we are no longer here. Why? Because anything else signifies defeat. And if you're here with me on this Tuesday, you are not someone who's easily given in to defeat. So that's going to require perseverance. And as we look on the screen, we see what the definition of perseverance is. And there are some letters and some words in red that are vitally important for us to be challenged with, but to be encouraged by. Perseverance. Steady persistence in a course of action, a purpose, a state, especially during difficulties, obstacles, or discouragement. Now, I don't know what brought you here today, but I do know it's not CE hours, because there are none. I don't know what made you sign up or say, you know what, I'm going to see what Neal has to say about this perseverance stuff. Right? But I do know that you have had to deal with some difficulties, some obstacles, and likely some discouragement. Maybe it's going to be inside of the real estate industry with the settlement. Maybe it's the continued conversations about clear cooperation. Maybe you've had to overcome these ideas and the talk and the chatter about buyers and sellers and compensation. Any of that. Maybe it has nothing to do with real estate at all. Maybe you're having to persevere with a difficult diagnosis or a bad relationship or just something health-wise that isn't working out. It could be that something somewhere along the road, the plans that you had are not looking like the realities and the results that you're getting. But that's okay, because we have heard what you see on the screen, never give up. But there is a way for us to cultivate a never give up attitude. And so I'm going to ask you, would you consider yourself as someone who has created, who has embraced, someone who has developed a never give up attitude? If not, there's going to be one key thing I'm going to ask and encourage you to do today. And that is, before this week is over, do something hard and see it until the end. Now, I don't know what that something hard is. For you, maybe the very first step in you reestablishing your perseverance and being resilient is to wake up at a certain time every day of the rest of this week. That could be it. It could be that you just need to go outside and run for 30 minutes. Maybe you might just need to eat some leafy green vegetables, something that is hard for you, and then just say, I'm going to see this through until the end. And the reason why a never give up attitude is so important is because of this whole idea of performance-based self-esteem. We know that as individuals, as human beings, that our performance is directly related to our self-esteem. The better we feel about ourselves, the better we perform. The better we perform, the better we feel about ourselves. Now let's look at the converse of that. That is, the worse we feel about ourselves, the worse we perform. And the worse we perform, the worse we feel about ourselves. So what does that mean to you as a leader, as a business person, as an entrepreneur? It means that maybe today, this week, you just need to find one thing that's hard for you to win at. And once you overcome that challenge, and we're going to talk about some challenges here today. Once you overcome that, guess what? You say, well, what else can I accomplish? I've already done something that was hard, that was challenging, that was difficult, something that maybe I didn't believe I could do, I wanted to. But if you will follow through, if you will do something hard this week, I believe that it's going to help cultivate that never give up attitude, and that's going to help you last until. So there is a saying that you can give up, just not today. And so that's the same thing I want to echo to you. So you can give up, just not today. And then when I see you tomorrow, when you're having a tough day, guess what I'm going to repeat to you? You can give up, just not today. And if we take that attitude every day, all day, no matter, despite the challenges and the hurdles that we're going to be faced with, is going to result in some positive outcomes. Now, there is this thing called perception and reality. Now, here's the perception. The perception is that the sky is falling, that we should run to the hills and just bury our head in the sand, that things are never going to get better, that this is as bad as they've ever been. The reality is, we've seen stuff happen before. The reality is that no matter where you are, someone has it worse. and they've overcome it. So I am a firm believer that if you have gotten through anything, or if someone else has gotten through anything, so can you. So as we think about our real estate industry and talking about settlement changes and buyer relationships and listing relationships with sellers and what's allowed and what's permitted, what's required, what is the perception? Have you made up in your mind where you're going to stand, what you're going to lean toward? Are you going to cower and accept the perception that others are painting for you? Or are you going to pause for a moment and say, well, what is my reality? Because I do know that your reality and my reality are not the same thing. And unless you are intentional, you will allow my reality and my words and what you see to impact and create a false perception of you or for you. So John Maxwell in Make Today Count, he talks about this when it comes to creating that never give up attitude and then making sure that we live in our reality. And he says that when you come to a crossroad, you can recognize this intersection right here by three things. One, that a personal decision is required. Today, you're going to have to make a decision. And here's what I will encourage you with. There were thousands of people who had to make a decision today if they're going to attend this right here. There were thousands of people, tens of thousands of people who had to make a personal decision. Am I going to commit to being better? Am I going to wake up, get dressed, turn on my computer and try to improve today? And we can see that some people chose the easy route. The second thing is that the decision will cost you something. It costs us something to decide to be professionals. It costs us something to say, I'm going to block out all of the chatter that might create a false perception of the industry. And then the third thing that you will know when you must make a decision between perception and reality is that others will likely be influenced by it. And so by that, what I'm going to remind you of this morning is that your decision to come here, knowing that a cost must be paid. Someone that we know, or maybe someone that we're going to work with later on today, this week, this month, or the rest of this year, is going to be impacted by your decision to say, yes, I'm going to be here. I want to get better. I want to make sure that I have the skills, the talents necessary to go until. So here's where we start with the until. It starts with our mornings. There's no mistake that the team put this class in the morning. Why? Because if you win the morning, you win the day. This comes from one of my favorite books called The 5 a.m. Club. And so I'm just asking you, do you have a morning routine that's going to help you get through your day? Can you win the first 2 hours of your day between 8 and 10 o'clock or 9 and 11 o'clock? Can you win? If you can, the chances are vastly improved that you're going to win your day. If you have a morning routine, something that you're going to do consistently, because this is going to help you cultivate that never give up attitude. Because what do we know in our business? We know that once those phones start ringing, once those emails start coming in, we are at the mercy of everyone else. Clients, customers, prospects, colleagues, title companies, lenders, right? So we have to be intentional about winning our morning so that we can win the day. And then after a fantastic day, a busy, hectic day, what are we going to do so that we can persevere and go until? We're going to execute our evening routine. We're going to walk out of the office and say, yes, I cleared my desk. I prepared for the next morning of work. I know the calls that I must make or the note cards I must write. I know all about the appointments. I've done my research for my CMA or my professional opinion of value. Maybe your evening routine is where you wind down and maybe read a good book or have a cup of chamomile tea. But if we build in those morning and evening routines, this is how we turn an art into a science. This is what's going to allow us to persevere. One, because in the morning, we know that by lunchtime, we've already won our day. Second, in the evening time, we can rest easy and recover because we already have a plan to execute the following day. Now, here on the screen, you see this big sign, this caution sign that says obstacles ahead. I know if you're like me, you wish life came with an obstacles ahead sign, but it never happens. What is our reality? Our reality is that we might be driving down the road of life. Everything is fantastic. We have our top down, and unless you're me, you have your hair blowing in the wind, listening to your favorite music, and out of nowhere, something happens. And there was never an obstacles ahead sign. That's why we're here today, to let you know that regardless of who you are going to have obstacles. One of my favorite books says that in this life you will have trouble, but take heart. So when I say obstacles ahead, this is how we probably envision ourselves. We see ourselves clearing a hurdle easily in full business attire. We've said, well, we've trained. We have done our buyer consultation, role play, dialogue scripts. We have watched all of the training from the association and NAR. We've been to Facts.Realtor. We have gone on Florida Realtor site. We know how to navigate the new listing agreements and buyer brokerage agreements. And so I'm going to do this in full garb and be okay. But then our reality looks a little bit different. I mean, it took everything we could just to respond or answer the phone when a buyer who was unhappy because they didn't get the offer called. Or when a seller sees us face to face and says, hey, I thought you said you could get the job done. Maybe you're being yelled at by your family members because you aren't closing the deals that you thought and that they expected you to close. So now maybe you're like our guy over here in the red, where you are going down and there's nothing you can do about it. Maybe you're like our guy here in the blue or the black, where you hit the previous hurdle and you're not totally sure that you even want to continue. But here's the one I don't want you to be like. If we see our friend over here, this is the very first hurdle. You can see the starting blocks just out of the frame. But what did he do? He decided, I'm not going to even attempt to overcome this hurdle. I'm not even going to chance it, risk it. I'm just going to live to fight another day. This is not my day. So he never even tried. Now, while he might have saved himself the embarrassment of our friends here in the red or blue, we know that he will never in this race experience victory because he saw a hurdle, he saw the obstacle, and he stopped. Now, my question for you is, are you facing a hurdle? Are you back here at the starting gate? Have you mentally prepared? Yes, I see these hurdles ahead of me. I know that it's going to require something of me. Remember, we talked about it's going to require this personal decision. He made his decision. And if you look on his face, he's saying, I'm probably going to regret that. Maybe he's saying, I'm glad I'm not this guy. But what I really want you all to see is this. This is not just a regular race. If you look closely, you will see these Olympic rings. What does that mean? That means that he fought, he trained his entire life to get here to this moment, to get to the Olympics, and at the first sign of challenge, of hurdles, of obstacles, he quit on the dream, the goal that he had worked his entire life to get to. I don't want that to be you. I want you to be that person that hits the first hurdle and says, I still have a chance. We don't have to be this guy over here that doesn't hit any hurdles. But if you look behind him, did he hit the first one? Yes, he did. Did he keep going? Yes, he did. So here in Florida, this is one of my favorite photos. Many times my wife and I will find ourselves standing on the beach looking out into the ocean. And as we look, we will say, man, it's so great to be alive. Life is fantastic. I'm so happy that we are here in this time. Only to turn around, and I am in Fort Lauderdale, so when I turn around, I'm looking west to the Everglades, and I'm looking back over Broward County, and more often than not, I will see the storm clouds brewing, coming over to the eastern side. And now I have to ask, am I going to panic? Am I going to lose focus on the beauty that's ahead of me because there is going to be a storm that's coming? I don't know if you've heard the saying, but chances are you've probably experienced this. The saying is that you're either in a storm, just coming out of one, or about to head into one. So even if you are facing the beauty of what your current circumstances are now, just know there might be a storm brewing. And I don't say that to rain on your parade. I say that to encourage you and to prepare you. What am I preparing you for? It's for this thing right here on the screen, a hurricane. Why, Neal, you know it's hurricane season. Why are you going to prepare me and scare me talking about a hurricane? Because if we know that hurricanes are a realistic possibility in our lives, what do? We have hurricane evacuation procedures. We have hurricane preparedness plans and routes. We know that we're supposed to have our waters. We're supposed to have our batteries and our flashlights and some type of radio. That we're going to probably have some canned goods. All of this stuff we prepare for. We get our generators primed. Well, let me ask you, do you have a disaster, a challenge? Do you have a until preparedness plan, right? Because we know that the storms are going to come. And so my question is, do you have a problem-solving strategy? A problem-solving strategy is when the storm, when the hurricane of life comes, when the practice changes took effect, when the buyer or the market changes to favor buyers or sellers, or you just can't drum up business, do you have a problem-solving strategy? Well, this is my favorite problem-solving strategy of all time. John Boyd was in the Air Force, and he came up with this idea of dogfighting, or for dogfighting, help fighter pilots win aerial combat. And it is called the OODA loop. John Boyd's OODA loop. And so here's what I would love to encourage you to do. Just go online and look up John Boyd's OODA loop. You'll see a lot of different videos, some articles, trainings. They even have courses on it. But this is what I have applied to my life, especially when I find myself needing to persevere, when I have to ask myself, can I make it through? This is too big. The mountain looks insurmountable. So the first part of the OODA loop, and OODA stands for observe, orient, decide, and act. And here is the difference between those who excel and those that don't. The ones who fail. The ones who excel, they are able to work through this OODA loop faster, repeatedly. Those who fail, they observe, and that's all they do, or they never make it through the entire process. So the OODA loop: observe, data collection from multiple sources. So in this industry right now, in the time that we find ourselves, have you observed what's going on? Have you collected data from NAR, Florida Realtors, the local association, from colleagues? Have you read what the news says? After we observe, now we must orient. And here's what orient means. Where do you fit into this thing? Whatever this thing is. It could be life. It could be in the settlement and the market. It could, like, where do you fit right now in your business in terms of the interest rates and inflation? Right? So many of us, we have a bad orientation. We have not taken a proper orientation and assessment. Well, what's my part in this? Where do I fit into this entire piece? And I say that to convict some of us. Some of us think that we have a bigger role to play than we really do. We are sitting here shaking our fists at the interest rates. We cannot change the interest rates. We're shaking our fist at the lack of inventory or the amount of inventory if you're in a buyer's market and you have the seller side. There's nothing we can do about that. What we can do is get the information through observing. We can orient ourselves, and then based on those first two O's, we get to decide. We get to say, well, here's the action. These are the actions that I'm going to take based on the information I have and where I fit into that. Now, the decision is important, but it is not the most important piece, because deciding and acting are not the same thing. So after we make a decision, we must execute the decision. And after we execute, we will do an AAR, after action review. Right? And I know that I'm doing a lot of talking conversation. Maybe it's too military for you, but I did mention U.S. Navy, Tervis Tumbler. My dad was a sailor. So this is the type of stuff that's going to help us build resilience, help us build perseverance, help us be able to go until. Once we observe, we orient, we decide, and then we act on those decisions, and we do it over and over. Every day I run the OODA loop hundreds, if not thousands of times. When we are driving, we're doing the same thing. If you have kids or nieces or nephews and they come up and they say, hey, I want this, you observe, you orient, you decide, and you act. When your buyer calls you, you look at the phone. Guess what you're doing? You're running the OODA loop. Same thing when you got the email for this class. You observe, oriented, decided, and then if you are here, that means you took action so that you really could be the best, so that you could persevere. Because this is our goal, right? Once we effectively run the OODA loop, guess what has to happen? What has to happen, since this is a science, is that results must come. And I have money on the screen, but your result might be peace. It might be a better relationship. Your real result might be that you have self-confidence, and that performance-based self-esteem has just really taken you on an upward spiral. Now, what do we know if you fail to execute the OODA loop consistently over time? We know that you're going to experience failure, that you might deal with depression, that you might have stress and sorrow. You might feel a sense of grief and frustration. So this is where that personal decision that must be made by you is going to be so important. Because would you rather have success or the other stuff? Right? Because ultimately you and I get to decide if we persevere or not. And this is not to take away from the challenge, the pain, how hard it is. Life is hard. So Les Brown, one of my favorite speakers, motivational speakers and inspirational speakers, he says life is hard, so do it hard. Because if we can do the hard thing called life, if we can do the hard thing called script, role playing, hard thing called making the phone calls, hard thing called buyer consultations and research and training, then life will be easier. So if you have identified with any of these names, right? Maybe today you woke up and you're saying, hey, hello, my name is Panic. Well, why are you panicked? Because I'm not doing the deals. My life is out of order, that things are not lining up the way that I had envisioned. I thought my reality was going to be one thing, but now I've listened to all of the bad stuff, right? And so I'm going to encourage you that at any time you have the opportunity to change your name. You do not have to be known as depressed, stressed, having grief. You do not have to be known as average agent or realtor. You can decide today to be that person that you want to be. And here's why. Because others have already done it. And the sky is not falling. How do I know? because we're still here. So now we're going to look at overcoming obstacles. The first thing that I want you to notice from the image on the screen is that this person overcoming these obstacles is all by themselves. I don't know if you see this photo and you're like, yes, I love it. It terrifies me for a number of reasons. One, he is a solo climber. Now, I know the whole idea of free climb, yes, good job, kudos to you. But what else do we see as he's looking to overcome these hurdles? I also see someone that does not have any safety rope, that they are not tethered in to anything. And if this is you in life, can I encourage you to reconsider? This thing called life, this industry called real estate, this business that we're in, it is too hard, it is too difficult and dangerous to do on your own. That's why we are here. That's why we're doing this training. That's why your association and your leaders have said, let's make it so that he doesn't have to do this alone. The obstacles that they're going to face, yes, we know they're coming. We know they might even be skilled enough to overcome them on their own, but let's make it easier for them to do that. And that's why support is so important. So when you see the word support, I want to ask you, who's supporting you right now? And it's not just one person or in one area of our lives. You're going to see right now this fortress of support. The word fortress is so strong because that means that there is this group, that there is something that's standing between you and those outside forces that are trying to attack. So building your fortress of support means that you might have your family team. So one of my strongest support pieces is going to be my wife. And then we see family team, health and fitness team, mentors and coaches. And then we look at all of these. And so we really must have a clear idea. Remember, turning art into a science. The art of perseverance, meaning that we just don't try to do this thing alone. It's much easier for me to go until if I have a morning routine, evening routine. It gets even easier once I have a problem-solving strategy like the OODA loop so that I can observe, orient, decide, and act. It gets even easier still when I have a fortress of support. My mentors and coaches, my friends. For me, that's going to include my spiritual advisors. You know, here you see mastermind group, Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich. And if you have not read Think and Grow Rich, I'm going to encourage you to do so. There is some weird stuff in here, but I encourage you to read Think and Grow Rich because he talks about the power of the mastermind. And if the mastermind concept is a foreign concept to you, it will really help you persevere until, right? And then this one here, this peak performance partner, what I call my success partner. Do you have someone that you're doing life with in business? Maybe you're going to have a success or peak performance partner when it comes to your health, when it comes to your finances, your relationships, your mental well-being. For me, I have success partners when it comes to coaching, speaking, real estate, my buyer side and my seller side. So I'm going to make sure that I have success or peak performance partners with me in different areas of my life. Why? So that when I get down for losing a listing or a buyer leaving me because I did something wrong, I don't go into my own head. I talk it out with my peak performance or success partner, and they help me to get into that OODA loop and then observe, orient, decide, act to see how we can improve. So for me, this is what my overcoming obstacles looks like. It means that I am, as much as I wish I was the one that was always at the top of the mountain first, and that I was the one pulling someone up because I was strong enough to get there by myself. The reality, my reality is that is often not the case. My reality is that more times than not, I'm the one that's coming up towards the peak of the mountain, and I've given everything that I have to get there, and I'm not sure that I can make it to the top. And just when I get there and I say, I made it to the Olympics, but I'm going to stop at this first hurdle, I see that hand come over the edge, and then they reach down and they pull me up. And then what do? We get to enjoy the summit together. So regardless of which of these two you are, make sure that you start building your fortress of support today. Maybe that's going to be the thing, that hard thing that you need to do and see it through the end. Maybe you need to go in and build your mentor and coaches, or it could be that you need to find someone that's going to help you with your health, your relationships, or specifically in real estate, that peak performance partner that's going to be there and hold you accountable for doing those things that you said you would do. Great things. And so this is what the late Kobe Bryant said: great things come from hard work and perseverance, no excuses. So with Kobe, the Mamba, telling us this, let me ask you, how much hard work and perseverance have you embodied over the past year, over the past 4 years? Here's what I do know. I do know that we have perseverance because we are still here in this industry post-pandemic. And I want to remind you to remember what you've already come through. Remember what you already endured, what you already overcame, because we get so busy looking down or looking ahead that we forgot that we've overcome some pretty tough stuff already. And then embrace that no excuses attitude, that never give up by any means necessary. Because here's what success looks like. Success is work. You do see that there are stairs to success, that there are levels that we must climb. And this is not a downward staircase. It's moving up. Why? Because you have to get to work. I have to keep working. And then we must not stop. And if we get to work, keep working, and don't stop, ultimately we will reach success. So there is a saying that says that the race is not given to the swift or the strong, but to he who endures until the end. So on your race, on your journey to success, are you racing fast? Are you thinking of just moving swiftly? Or have you mentally prepared to say that I am going to go until? I am not going to stop. Therefore, I will win. Because I will tell you, in my success, or in my life, much of my success, almost all of my success is that I have just won by default. Now here's what default is. I am just not smart enough to stop. When others, and I looked to my left and right, and they were further ahead of me, I said, well, hey, I'm just going to get to work, keep working, and I refuse to stop. I will not quit. I would see my colleagues, my competitors, 2 years later, and they're like, yeah, this isn't for me. I would see my colleagues 10 years, 15 years later, and they're like, yeah, I don't have what it takes. And so if you don't stop, success is inevitable. Now this is what real life looks like. So you see on the screen a lady in her heels and her skirt, her business. She's ready to take on the world, but she only has an umbrella. And the important thing I want you to see is that she was prepared for the wind and the rain, but maybe not for the rocks. In your business, in your life, there are going to be times when you are as prepared as you can be, but there are going to be some things that we just are not prepared for. So if you're thinking, well, they told us it was going to rain today, I'm prepared for the rain, but then hail starts to, now when I say hail, I'm talking H-A-I-L. You might say, man, it was H-E-L-L. So hail starts to come at you. What are you going to do? Are you going to complain, or are you going to say, well, I'm in it now, let me persevere, let me go until I reach the end? Victor Hugo, perseverance is the secret of all triumphs. And I want you to look back and just do an analysis, do a review of your greatest triumphs. The likelihood that they were easy is very slim. More so than not, you probably had a challenge. You probably were at a place where you had to make that personal decision, and you had to say, how bad do I really want this thing? How bad do I really want to get in this industry? Do I want to win? And then you will find that that's going to be the secret to all of those great triumphs that you have, your willingness to persevere. And we know that if you can endure the rain, the rocks, the hardness, the hail, ultimately there's going to be a breakthrough. Now, I don't believe that it's going to be this easy. I don't believe that our breakthrough is just going to be a couple swings of the hammer. Maybe your breakthrough is going to come 2 years in. Maybe it's going to come one more transaction in. Maybe it's 30 more transactions or consultations. What I do know is that if you keep swinging, you are going to reach your reward. This little book here called Acres of Diamonds by Russell Conwell. Acres of Diamonds. We've heard about it. We talk about it. Maybe you have not read it, but I got this book probably 17 years ago. This small one here where the pages are even starting to yellow, and all of my highlights have have faded away. But Acres of Diamonds talks about this same thing. Your success is closer than you believe. We've probably all seen the image of the guy who is underground digging and stops and walks away just one more swing away from experiencing his success, from finding all of those diamonds. And here's my challenge, here's my ask, my plea to you. My plea is that don't give up. My plea is that you would swing the axe one more time and don't stop until. I mean, you can quit, just not today. So today, on this Tuesday, keep swinging until tomorrow. And then tomorrow, I'm going to tell you to keep swinging until tomorrow. And that's how we know that we're going to be successful. The late Steve Jobs says, if you really look closely, most overnight success took a long time. So one of my friends, he always says, hey, I'm an overnight success. It was just one 40-year night, right? So it has taken him 40 years to experience the success that he has. So I want to encourage you, be an overnight success. Now, here's what an overnight success might be. It might mean that you are required to work overnight while others are sleeping, while our colleagues or our customers, clients, prospects, while they're sleeping in bed. Maybe you've got to get up or stay up and dive into some market stats. Maybe you need to rework your buyer consultation or your marketing presentation. Either of those. Maybe you're going to have to stay up and take some additional training with the ABR by going to becomeabr.realtor. I don't know, but if you want to be successful, it might not happen overnight, but you will likely have to have some long nights in the process. W. Clement Stone, he is one of the fathers of personal growth and self-development. And so this whole definiteness of purpose, and that's the whole idea underneath this Think and Grow Rich that Napoleon Hill talks about. Definiteness of purpose is the starting point for all achievement. How definite are you about your purpose in life, in business, with your health? Do you have this one thing that you are, I'm going to say, insanely focused on? If not, it's going to be a challenge to persevere. I mentioned that life is hard. We, as human beings, myself included, we don't like doing hard stuff. But why do we do it? Well, we do what's hard because we know that the purpose, that goal, that dream that is within our hearts and our heads is bigger than the desire for ease. Maybe we're going to have a definiteness of purpose that's going to help others. Many times we will do for others what we will never do for ourselves. Is that true? If that's true for you, Who do you need to have as your purpose? And it doesn't mean one individual person. Maybe your purpose is going to be to help a certain group that is challenged. Maybe your purpose is to leave a legacy so that when it's easy for you to give up and quit on yourself, you could not ever give up or quit on that thing, on that legacy that you're working for. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. We've heard it. I know Jim Rohn says it. So did a few of the coaches. And so here's what we have to understand. It's not just the 5 people. There are different circles. And here's why this is so important. I've already talked about building that fortress of support. But as we move toward closing today, I want to ask you, if you look at the 5 people that you're closest with, would you be pleased or not? Now, here is the challenge. Or let me say, here's the question. The question that we know, what we're told is that we are like the 5 people we spend the most time with. The opposite question is, are we like them because, or do we spend time with them because we're like them, or are we like them because we spend time with them? And so my ask is, if you look at those people who are closest to you, would you be willing to trade places with them? If not, maybe you need to distance yourself. And so here's what we call this 3x5 associations assessment. These are the 5 people I spend the most time with professionally, personally, and socially. Now, if you are in a personal relationship, that does not mean you go back and tell them, say, hey, I don't like what you're doing to me. Neal told me to divorce you. I did not say that. I do want you to take an assessment, and we'll look at this here in a moment. Professionally, who are the 5 people that you spend the most time with? Are they going to be a benefit and an asset, or are they a liability? Here's what we know, and I firmly believe. I don't believe there's any such thing as staying the same. You are either improving or you are getting worse. We are never staying the same. So the idea is that you're growing or dying. There is no stagnation. So professionally, who are the 5 people that you spend the most time with? In your personal life, who are the 5 people you spend the most time with? And then socially, who are you spending the most time with? And here's what we're going to do. After we know those 5 people, and I want you to have a face, a name, select those people. And then the LDE, you're going to limit your association with them, disassociate, or you're going to expand the association. So limit means that you're going to cut back on the amount of time you spend with them. Maybe you are going to, instead of spending time with them every day, maybe it's once a week or every couple of days. Disassociate. These are the cancers. Now, once again, don't go tell people, Neal said you're a cancer. I've got to operate right now and cut you out of my life. However, you might need to disassociate with some people who are currently close to you, and the closeness might just be because of familiarity or the time spent with them. So this is typically going to be the easiest when it comes professionally. It's going to be the toughest when we come personally, because those are those ties. And then it's the most uncomfortable when it's socially, because these are the people that we have chosen to spend time with, and they're around us for some type of reason. And then finally, after we limit our association, we disassociate, or the E is going to be expand. And so my question, and this is where, if we can disassociate and expand, if we can get the wrong people out of our lives and spend more time with the right people, guess what? All of a sudden, our ability to persevere strengthens. All of a sudden, we get a lot better at saying, I can go until. Why? Because we find ourselves in an upward spiral. We talked about that performance-based self-esteem. If I am hanging with Tony professionally and I see Tony moving up, I'm like, man, I should spend some more time with Tony. Maybe Leslie or Javin, they're doing some really great stuff. And I'm like, okay, I just want to be in their proximity. I just want to be around them. Guess what? I am going to benefit from their performance. And then my self-esteem, because birds of a feather flock together. We are like those that we spend time with. All of a sudden, I will find myself finding new strength and new mental fortitude to say, I believe it's possible. Because, Tony did it, so I should be able to do it. Right? Julia, she was able to do this thing, so I can do this thing as well. And then just be intentional about expanding your list. And this requires, as we mentioned, that personal decision. That is going to be a challenge. But here's what we also know, that as you expand your associations, not only do you improve, the people that you expand your associations with, they improve as well. Now, I am not naive enough to say that it's not going to be a challenge limiting our associations or disassociating with the wrong people. So there is this quote or this idea that there are different types of people in your life. There are 30-second, 3-minute, 3 days, right? So there are some people that you can only take in 30-second doses. We all know those people where we say, good morning, how are you doing? Even if we've had a horrible day, we're never going to tell them because we don't want to have that interaction for more than 30 seconds. There are some 3-minute people where we can come in and have a quick 3-minute conversation, be around them, but after 3 minutes they become annoying. And then there are those 3-day people where 3 days isn't even enough time. That the more time you spend around them, the more they empower you, the more they fill you up. So our goal is to disassociate from those 30-second people, limit our time with those 3-minute people, and then expand our relationships with those 3-day people. You'll find that you are better for it. And then when it comes to persevering, there is this idea of delete, the 3D system. And not only with people, but also with processes. Many of us are unable to persevere, to go until, simply because we have too much on our plates. We have the weight of the world, the weight of the industry, of our familial responsibilities sitting on our shoulders. And so my ask would be, when was the last time you actually looked at all of the things that you're executing on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis? How much should you be doing, right? And so the 3D system is this. First, there are some things. What are the things that you should just delete altogether, right? We are great salespeople, so we are good at lying to ourselves. Yes, I'm on social media and IG, Facebook, so that this is part of my social media marketing. No, it's not. You're sitting there scrolling and your thumb is just rolling, looking at videos all night long. Maybe it could be deleted. Now, I'm not telling you what to do, just giving you some ideas. Maybe it really is a piece of your social media marketing platform or your business. But if it's not to be deleted, could it be delegated? Is it required for you to do this thing? And so here's the idea for us to be able to persevere and go until we need to. We have to free up some of our mental space. So deletion might be one of the first steps. After that, it might be to delegate. And I know that we as control freaks, as A-type personalities, we're going to want everything done exactly the way we want it done. What if there's a better way than the way we're doing it? What if there's someone skilled that you can find on Fiverr or with some type of virtual assistance or an intern, maybe a newer agent who says, well, I can't do it just like you, but I do believe if given the opportunity, I could do it 80% as well as you. And that's what our standard is. If someone can do the job, the task, 80% as well as you can, that's still a B. Maybe you would benefit from delegating that role, that task, to someone else. You've deleted the trash from your life. We've thrown that away. You've delegated those non-dollar producing activities or highest function activities. And then we're going to look at that last D, or their double Ds. It's double down. So once we delete, then we delegate, we then want to look at doubling down. And how do we double down? We double down by saying, okay, what are the highest dollar producing activities for me? We know that right now in our industry, in real estate, the most important thing that you can do, that you need to double down on, is what? Lead generation. Lead generation is something that in our lives, in our business, I don't care what role you have or what your job title description is, we are what? Lead generators. So lead generation is a double down activity. If we can double down on lead generation, guess what happens? We're probably going to have more opportunities for business. When it comes to doing buyer consultations and marketing consultations or listing presentations, that's a double down activity. When it comes to face-to-face meetings, we double down. We don't want to delegate that. Why? Because it is a dollar producing activity or a high income producing activity. And that's where we want our focus. And so then finally, here's what we must do in order to create this never give up attitude and to have the willingness to go until. First, know that you are worth it. We see many of our colleagues who don't think, not that the industry isn't worth it or that the work isn't worth putting in the results. They're saying, hey, you know what? I know me. I know the thoughts that I had yesterday. I know what I am capable of or what I did in the past. I know my upbringing or how I think about individuals. I'm not worth it. Well, that's where I want to come and tell you that you are wrong, that you are worth it, that you are worth going until, that your need, or that the need for you to persevere, to not give up, to keep going, to cross those hurdles, to overcome the obstacles, to implement the OODA loop, that it is vitally important, not only for you, but for those of us who are going to be impacted by you. So whether it is going to be professionally, personally, socially, whether it's a health challenge, I just want to encourage you that we do need you to persevere. We need you to go until. I believe that you have it in you to do this thing that's necessary, because if you do, then great results are going to come at the end of it. Now, once again, it might not be the money raining from the heavens, but I do believe that it's going to be a sense of accomplishment, that there is going to be this fulfillment, that the self-esteem and that the performance is going to work in an upward spiral and get you to where you want to be, and you will have everything that you want out of this. Because as I mentioned at the very onset of class, there were lots of people who had the chance to make a decision today, and they made a decision today. The question is, was it the right decision? Right? You made a decision today. You're going to have to make more decisions as the day goes on. And then you're going to have to run through that OODA loop. Observe, orient, decide, act. And at the end of the action, we're going to do that after action review and say, what did I learn? What can I improve upon? Do I believe that I can achieve something bigger, something better in the future? If so, I believe that we're going to be poised and positioned for some greatness, that we can persevere, that we can turn the art into a science, and that at the end of the day, we're going to look around and we're going to see some familiar smiling faces and say, hey, I know you. You're someone who knows and who understands the value and the method to persevere. So I know that originally this was going to be open for a lot of people, so we had chances to ask questions, and so that's how we were going to get to the multiple hours of this. But I also heard one of my mentors say that if the cows come to the pasture, me coming from Alabama, work with me, if the cows come to pasture but only one cow comes, do you still feed them? And the answer is yes. But don't pour the whole food trough on them, right? So make available for them what they want, but we don't want to overload. So here